Mikey's living in purgatory. He's living in black and white. He's trying to paint these flits of color to his life, to his memories. But he is journeying through this rather basic, life.
I got nothing, okay? I got no wife, I got no kid, I got nothing.
I'm sorry I wasn't the son that you wanted.
I think the people that really matter in your life are far more willing to forgive than you might expect.
This is it. This is everything.
You guys created such a beautiful movie. I have to say that ahead of everything, because I wasn't expecting two things. It's gonna be so beautiful shoot and the cast, because I didn't want to know anything about the movie before I watched it, and I was so amazed by the cast. Michael, you were amazing. You are, and Jack, congratulations, this first movie. And I'm always curious about why we use boxing and redemption usually in the same movies, because I'm really curious. Most of the movies that we watch about boxing is the character who looks for a redemption.
Interesting. It sort of felt in this aspect. It's sort of when it came to me. I used to watch Michael when I was doing Boardwalk Empire together. In between takes, he'd get one of our grips would hold up a sandbag and he'd punch the sandbag, and he'd usually be finishing work and going to the boxing gym. So I had this like seed planted, and when I saw or I conceived the idea, there was no one else but Michael to play this character. But I think it's because it's sort of the most basic of human examples, like two men in a ring that you fight, you die with your hands. Yeah. It's just you've got nothing else. It is your most basic, that redemptive story about, I think a lot of boxers' lives are also, very complicated.
When you walk into a boxing gym, there's 100 stories like Mikey's. I wasn't a boxing fan growing up. I didn't know boxing. Then as I got more into it, I started to see the beauty of the sweet science, as they say. It's a human. It's about the human condition.
It really
we
is.
all feel like fighters. We are all fighting in our life, and your team in boxing is your support group. So that's your trainer. It's also your wife, your father, your cousin,
your coach,
and then it's up to you when you face your opponent. And I think it's one of the sports where you can literally be losing for every single round, and you can turn it around, as we've seen so many times. And it's just fucking inspiring to people. Anyway,
I agree. I love black and white movies. I grew up, and even I don't know if you are related to Dead of the Fight. There's a name of a short film that Stanley Kubrick has, and it's about boxing too. And they work with lighting, because I assume you imagine the movie black and white before you start even filming. Do you work? It's a different kind of work with lighting, and how that affect your performance, Michael? You have to have a different perspective of lighting.
Well, I think that it's very interesting that Jack decided to do this in black and white. And what's crazy is when I watched the film, it looks so modern to me. And we should say the DP, I mean, the quality.
Peter Simon had a wonderful DP.
The quality of the black and white is really beautiful.
We had gorgeous Leica lenses that gave it that depth, that grit, that grain, that, I guess homage, and sort of made you think of films past, but pulled you into the present. When I say present, 1989, but we wanted to make something that honored both the old and the new.
But what I love about it is it's almost like doing Hamlet with no set.
Yeah.
And now if you can create the castle around you, you strip it down to the minimal, and then you get to see the real work, I believe.
I mean, Mikey's living in purgatory. He's living in black and white. He's trying to paint these flits of color to his life, to his memories, but he is journeying through this rather basic, life. And it's sort of like an elegy in that sense that he's, almost at the last part, crossing the river Styx, being presented with death, all of his past, mishaps, blemishes, regrets. And what would you do on this last day if you had one day to fix or maybe right some of the wrongs that you'd committed?
Because I think it's beautiful that the fight only happened at the end, and the whole journey that your character has, it's what make me as an spectator really getting along and feel empathy for the history of this person, because we all been fighting to something or towards something.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a beautiful poetry that you just did, Jack, and through Michael, of course.
But it's a beautiful way of saying it, because that's what we always talk about. Is I love film. Michael loves film. The films that made me, the films that built me, the films that made me want to become a filmmaker. This is, in essence, homage to that. I love films that make you feel.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just jump into a boxing match. I wanted us to earn that fight. I wanted Irish Mike to earn that fight. Day of the fight is a metaphor. It's not the fight in the ring. It's that the day he's fighting for everything.
Everything.
This is everything in his life. It's all led to this day. And what would you do? I would love that question, because we always asked ourselves that question on set. What would you say? What would you do? Who would you speak to? And I always go back to sometimes just the simplest of things, of the stripping of his clothes when he meets Sam, the young girl, on the street. There was something that sort of came to me when I was writing that. I think that was such a almost like that saintly moment of realizing you're stepping out of your life and you don't need or take anything away with you, and it's passing it on to a stranger, to a child, whatever it is. And it just showed the humanity and the truth of who this person is.
Sadly, I have to go, but what you say is something biblical to me, like you said it. And so congratulations, such an amazing film.
Thank you.
Thank
Get
you
it
so
out
much.
there. Tell everybody.
I will. I have watched the movie again, but I watched it in a movie theater and it feels different. And why it feels different? Because first, it's not the same watching black and white in your house than watching a big screen. And it just popped in my head when I was watching the movie, like how difficult it was to sell this movie, and part of the selling it said I want to show it in black and white in 2024.
Do you want to hear something really cheeky? I think I always had it in black and white in my head, but when we were doing the contracts with the financier, I think I might have forgot to mention that it was in black and white, and they didn't say I couldn't shoot it in black and white. So when they got the dailies, they went, hang on a second, it's in black and white. And I said, well, of course it is. We discussed that, right? But it might, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I think they were surprised maybe initially, but they were, at the end, they were very grateful, because they understood as much as anybody. You watch the film, it only works in black and white. It is a black and white film. It is a feature. It is a throwback. It is homage to those films that I fell in love with, that feel like black and white has this amazing ability to magnify the human soul, the character. I think it's so weird, because there's an irony to that we live in color, and yet it's like a black and white photograph. There's something so intrinsically like soul grabbing, like a magnifying glass, that I think a film like this, which is a pure character study, for us to go on that journey with Michael and to see these flits of colors in memory, it only works this way. Like the movie only works with Michael Pitt as the actor. It's like there are certain things that you sacrifice one of them and you sacrifice the integrity of the whole picture.
But that's what you love classic film, because the narrative,
Yeah.
Narrative was
Yes.
super important. And
Yes.
this is the special thing about your movie. And I remember many years ago watching the 25th Hour, the Spike Lee movie
Oh, I
about
love that film. Yeah.
everything on a day, and it just threw me emotionally back. Like we all have a day that changed our life.
Oh, absolute. I love that film. I remember Barry Pepper doing such a great performance in that movie. And there's that great scene with Brian Cox where he recounts what he could do. Right now, you're driving across the border and then you go into all those moments in such a Spike Lee way. Such a great film. I've got to rewatch that film. Such a good reference. Yeah, no, I think we're missing that a little bit, which is films which are, I say the story itself is maybe simple in its attitude of what it is. The complexity comes from the human aspect of it. The soul, the story, the complexity of character and how that's developed and those relationships that we have in our life. I think on paper, the beauty is it is in a day. But we're trying through this day to paint a life, that's where you really get into the depths of the soul. Is every single one of these relationships. It's a very hard thing to do, to ostensibly go from one person to another and pretty much make amends and say goodbye and find these redemptive moments, these moments of forgiveness, not only from them, but, in your own soul. So that was very much the dance. And that comes from being on set and seeing these actors work together and finding these real moments, because it's all about honesty, isn't it?
I wonder how much in Michael's character are in you, because you wrote the film, you directed the film, you're an actor, now you're directing, and you choose Michael Pitt for a reason. So I wonder, usually when a director it's this passionate, this involved in a project, it's because they want to transmit something. They want to transmit a feeling. They want to transmit, I don't know, something in their life. And when you're so focused using Michael Pitt to create this character, it has to be a reason, man. It has to be something, because I haven't seen a person passionate about a project in a very few years like you are with this one. And it has to be something behind that you want to tell.
Well, it's funny because I know the life Michael's had, and sometimes life, imitates art. Mm. And I've been close with Michael since we did Boardwalk, and Michael's had some ups and downs in his life. He's the first to say it. I really wanted to get across this idea that the people in our lives that truly matter are far more willing to forgive than we might expect. That the world is actually a much better place and a far more beautiful place than all of these awful things that are happening around us. And there is this thing about community and about coming together, and at the base of it all, love. Mm-hmm. I think love prevails. I think that's the truth of it. I think that Mikey might have done some terrible things in his life, but he's a good person. And I do think you can be both. I think you can do something bad, but there is redeemable qualities in human, which is, how are we going through life? Are we doing the best we can? Sometimes we're given a shitty straw, you know what I mean? We draw the shitty straw, and that's awful. It's terrible. And I want us to sort of like uphold each other sometimes. I find that we audiences aren't presented enough films that are about human emotion. I love to cry. I like to feel. I like to sympathize. I want to see goodness in people. I love to see the goodness in people. And I wanted to show that in writing, Mikey might be, a ex-boxer, obviously killed a kid in a car crash, alcoholic, drunk, horrible relationship. But actually what you show is what's on paper isn't the person. That doesn't define me. I'm not defined by what's written down. I'm defined by who I am. And I believe I wanted to show a film that was the goodness of the human soul, man. When you're good, you're good. And Michael's very much that person. the film wouldn't have worked with anybody else. It's only Michael Pitt. I wouldn't have made the movie with anyone else.
Before I leave, I want to give kudos to the music and the editing.
Oh.
I think there's two beautiful and probably hidden characters, because the narrative is so powerful that we don't correlate the music with what we're watching, because we're listening. And I think the editing of this film and the music, it's on point.
Oh man, that's my brother-in-law. He's never scored a film, but he's a beautiful soul, and he's got such a lyrical, beautiful taste. And I said in the movie, and I said, do you think you could do this? And we worked so closely together, because I said music is another character in the film. Music takes us on our journey. He's never without music. He's never without his earphones. His father was a singer. His ex-wife was a singer, is a singer. It is another character. So I'm so happy you said that. And Ben's score is, I think, one of the most magnificent. Imagine that as a first score. I'm so happy you brought that up.
You're welcome, man.
So happy you brought that up.
And it's real. And thank you so much for your time.
Ruben, man, what a pleasure. Always nice to speak to you, man. Thank you so much.
I hope to shake your hand. And
I hope so too. I really hope so.